Hey guys, and welcome to TC Reviews Film. Now before I start, just to say everything in this video is purely my opinion and mine alone. This week I'm reviewing the absolutely beautiful film by the brilliant Guillermo del Toro, Pan's Labyrinth. Pan's is all about a young girl called Ophelia, discovering that she may be the heir to an underground fantasy world, and therefore has to endure and complete 3 very daunting and, let's be honest, terrifying tasks. In the meantime, her mother, who is heavily pregnant, has moved to live in the country with her new husband, the Captain Vital. Ophelia has to negotiate her way through the realities of post-war world of Spain and her fantasy world that could also be real. Now, it really annoys me when I come across someone who hasn't seen the film, who says they'd like to see it after I've given them a brief rundown of the plot, but then say, oh no, I'm not watching that, purely because it has subtitles. Now don't get me wrong, I get that there are a lot of people out there who do prefer to just sit back and watch a film, not needing to read anything to understand what's going on. But, in my opinion, if the story is good enough visualised, you won't actually need the subtitles that much. And Pan's Labyrinth is definitely one of those films. It uses as minimal dialogue as possible in each scene, but granted there are subtitles which can be distracting to some. I'll let that slide. I've watched a few films with subtitles, for example Spirited Away, even though they have a dubbed English version. Why? Because I believe that watching a foreign film in its native language completely adds to the film's overall experience. With Pan's being in Spanish, and half of the plot being about Franco Spain, it definitely adds to it in my opinion. Moving past the language barrier, all in all, this film is just utterly beautiful, visually, orally and plot-wise. The colours chosen have such a pastel likeness to them that when the need for brighter ones come along, cough, for example the end cough, it really draws the attention to the audience to where the film wants it. Along with the colours, the creatures Ophelia meets along on her tasks as well are also very visually pleasing to the audience. I mean, just look at this guy's face, he's gorgeous. But don't get me started on him because you'll never get me to shut up. No, seriously don't. With its incredibly dark themes, each task quite obviously have their own individual challenges. Task 1, get a key from the inside of a disgusting frog's stomach. Task 2, get a very intimidating looking knife without getting eaten by an incredibly skinny but terrifying pale man. And task 3, well, task 3 is arguable, I guess. One thing I didn't like about these tasks isn't about how grim they get, because they do get grim. But in task 2, Ophelia is told by her fae companions to open one of 3 doors. However, she chooses a different one, completely differently. This wasn't explained at all, and it felt really quite random to have that in. But let's focus on task 2 actually, because it is the best out of all 3. It is terrifying, intense, and such an amazing original idea from Del Toro. But at the same time, it has some good symbolism in it. For example, it has a huge reference to the Nazi concentration camps. That's shown through the pile of shoes. That's one of them. As the camera pans along the gorgeous table of food, we finally get to meet Ophelia's object to overcome, the Pale Man. I love the fact that he doesn't have a name other than the Pale Man. Like, he's just a legend. Seeing a couple of eyeballs on a plate in front of him, why a plate of all things, I don't know. I mean, why not in a safe container? Keep them clean, you know? Never mind. But we do soon discover that this guy eats children, and lots of them. I say that he's a legend because of the paintings we also see. Paintings in history have been depicted many myths and legends, religious and otherwise. I love how these are used. It's summing up a character without using Ophelia to talk to herself awkwardly, as so many films do. But I do wonder why they decided to put his eyes in the palm of his hands. Hands are used as tools, for the blind to see, for the deaf to speak. But to have his actual eyeballs in his palms, I'm not too sure. I mean, the palm of someone's hand is said that it holds your future, which created the birth of palm reading, even though I really wouldn't like to read this guy's palm. But what do you guys think? What's your opinion on it? This entire scene is a delight to watch. The sound is synced fantastically when the creature wakes up. Hand twitch, boom! Wall of sound. Second one, boom, wall of sound. Then probably the most god-awful breathing I have ever heard. I highly applaud the Foley artists for this bit. But what caused him to wake up? Ophelia eating a couple of grapes. Now, I have seen countless people asking and arguing why Ophelia has even drawn to the food in the first place when she was told not to touch anything. Yes, there are theories that the food has a spell on it and will entice children to eat it. But if you think more logically about it, Ophelia is living in a world with rations. Even living with the Captain Vidal, there will be food shortages. You're young, you're starving, you naturally want to eat the grapes. You're going to think that they're not really going to matter that much. I know I would think that too. Sure, there could be a spell on them as well, but I think it's down to pure human instincts. Hunger. That's when this scene gets gruesome, and I mean gruesome. The guy tears off the fairies' heads with his mouth, for crying out loud. He licks his fingers as if it was a KFC meal, then turns his attention to Ophelia. Ugh. Another thing that annoys me about this scene is the fact that the door Ophelia drew to get into the Pale Man's domain closes. Her time's up, she's failed, but the chalk still works to allow her out of the chambers. Was this just to add the intensity of the scene? Just to make the audience hang off the edge of their seats? If it was, I really don't like it. She failed to get back in time. Moving on. If you haven't already guessed, yes, I adore this film. I am giving it high praise, with a few objections here and there. Don't get me wrong, the whole film is brilliant, but there are some scenes I don't agree with. For one, I really don't like the scene with Captain Vidal shaving using a mirror, then randomly slicing his throat on the reflection. I don't know, it just seemed really random and a bit of a waste of time. It didn't add to the film a lot, to be honest. I mean, if that scene was taken out, I would still understand it all just fine. Not sure if it's purely because I don't like the captain. Yes, I know you're not meant to, so all credit to the writing. I really do truly hate this character. Spoiler alert, when he's shot and killed, there were a couple of things I didn't notice. One, he's shot in the face. Yes, I get he was shot in the face, I did notice that. But it's the fact his eyes turned blood red and one of them rolled back into his head. And against the blue tinge of the scene, really stood out. And yeah, I didn't notice it. Yes, I'm thick. 2. When he falls to the ground, his body curls up into the fetal position, almost as if he's completed the life cycle and has gone back to what he was before he was born. I think that's awesome. Spoiler alert again, at the end when Ophelia dies, there are so many theories as to if the world she was trying to get to was in fact real or not. Me being a fantasist, I want to say yes it was. But I can see why people say it's not. Pessimists. While Ophelia's life is being drained from her, she almost kind of imagines herself in this world. A world where her father is still alive, her mother is also there with her little brother, and also, yes, the gorgeous faun with all his fairy friends. Wow, that sounds so cheesy. But the matter of the fact is that Ophelia is still breathing when all of this is going on. So it could all well be in her head, and she's just imagining it. But, big but time, if you think about it, when Ophelia is locked in her bedroom, yes, locked, with only one door exit, she somehow escapes. Explain that, please. That's the one part I cling to when I want to believe this world. Also, the faun is totally real, but I'm not going to go into that. There is so much symbolism in this film, though. But one in particular, sorry guys, but a female's anatomy is definitely a recurring theme I see. When, another spoiler alert, when her mother is dying, the book has a bleeding uterus. This part of a woman symbolises life, birth, the next generation. A woman gives life to a child through this. So to see it bleeding could very much mean that life is being taken away. And surprise, surprise, when Ophelia goes to check her mother, she is bleeding out, just like the book suggested. The uterus is everywhere, almost like a hidden Mickey, sorry. But it could mean that women are actually the most important in this film, and it is kind of true. Ophelia is the protagonist. She almost saves her mother, but also saves her own brother in the end. Mercedes is even a spy under the captain's nose, helping her own brother to live and survive without him knowing. This film, to me, shows women as equals to men, just as powerful, just as devious and deadly. Overall, I give this film 5 stars. The music is divine, the cinematography is to die for, the prosthetics are absolutely fantastic, it has minimal use of CGI, the plot continually drives us forward, but without hesitating for too long in places. It's grim, it's beautiful, a definite must watch. But that's just my opinion. What are your thoughts? What did you like? What did you not like? Did you like it? Did you not? I'd love to hear your own theories about the story, so comment below. See you guys next week. I've been TC, and that's a wrap.